Welcome back to the Best Period channel. My name is Ganette Jones, founder and CEO of Best Period. And today I want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind lately, and that is common period symptoms that are not normal. And I'm going to say that again, common period symptoms that are not normal. Allow me to explain. Oftentimes we would talk to our friends and they would tell us something that they're dealing with, and we assume that because it's something we're also dealing with, that this is a normal occurrence. But I want you to understand the difference between common and normal. Common means that you have this in common with others. There's something you have shared, right, with other people. But normal is if it is in alignment with what would be healthy as it relates to periods. We're going to get into 5 different things. Let's go. So the first one is long periods. And I think in order for us to address long periods, we have to first understand what a cycle is, right? So your cycle begins on the day you menstruate. So the first day your period begins, that is cycle day 1. And up until the time you stop bleeding, that is your period. But your cycle still continues throughout. Your cycle is actually the entire time up until your very next period. So the day before your next period begins, that's the entire length of your cycle. I'm going to link below to a video all about the different phases of the cycle that I covered a while ago, maybe over a year ago now. But your period length itself should not be over a week long. So if you are experiencing periods that are longer than a week, it's time to really reevaluate what's going on there, especially if you have this coupled with other things we're going to talk about, because there could be many reasons for the things I'm talking about, and we'll get to that at the end, why some of these symptoms may be coming up. If you want to dive into anything in particular that you hear me talking about or breezing over as I'm covering this topic, just let me know in the comments and I will for sure make sure to do a video on it. So your period should not be longer than a week. A week is 7 days. Many people have 8, 9, 10, 11, sometimes even 12-day periods, and that is considered a long period, which means it's abnormal. So even if your mom and your grandmother and aunt, your uncle, your cat, your dog, whoever, just because they may have also had long periods does not mean that it's normal. It may be common amongst you and your family, but it is not a normal occurrence for periods. And it's something that could be a sign of something more important that you will need to look out for. So again, we'll get into some of that at the end. But the first sign is long periods. So number 2 is heavy bleeding. First of all, the word heavy, it's a bit abstract because like what determines heavy? So we're going to get into that. But heavy bleeding is something extremely common, especially amongst us in the Black community. I see often many different pages that talk about menstruation and fibroids and things like that. They often say you should only be bleeding no more than 80 milliliters.
What does that even mean?
A regular pad or tampon is about 5 milliliters. Many people are using super tampons, super plus tampons, the overnight pads if you have heavy bleeding. So they, of course, have much heavier absorbency. They can hold a lot more, usually up to like 20 milliliters. So if we're looking at something like that, that means for your entire period, soaking through no more than 4 of them. Some people could do that in a day. Some people are changing them on an hourly, 2-hour basis. If that is you, I need you to understand that that isn't normal. And it's something that needs to be looked into further. So as another point of reference, if you are a Best Period menstrual cup user, our size 2, you would know, has really high capacity holding 40 milliliters, which means that it holds 8 regular pads or tampons worth. Let's focus. Focus, camera. It's focusing on my face. Am I cute? Maybe. Focus on this. Okay, maybe not. I tried. It holds 40. So that means that if you have a size 2 menstrual cup and you're changing it more than 2 times because it's up to full capacity. So obviously if you're changing every 12 hours and it's not full, then that's something different. We actually have markers in the inside that would tell you when you hit 15 milliliters and 7.5 milliliters. Like, so you have that tracking ability. But if you're using it and it gets to the top and you're changing like completely full more than twice, then you have a heavy period. Majority of menstrual cups, like their size 2, their largest size goes up to 25 milliliters. So that means if you're using another brand and you're changing that one more than, oh goodness, I'm doing the math, 3.5 times when it's completely full,
quick maths,
then you also have a heavy period. The important piece for you to understand here is that if you are finding yourself having to change anything frequently because it's full, you likely do have a heavy flow. Your regular pads, well, if you have a heavy flow, you're probably not wearing regular pads or regular tampons, right? Because it goes by absorbency. But if you are changing them on an hourly or 2-hour basis, then you likely have a very heavy period. And this is very common, especially for those who have conditions like fibroids or endometriosis. You have heavier flows. So just so you understand, when I say change it, like obviously you should be changing your period products. I don't have to tell you that. Menstrual cups you should be changing every 12 hours. And of course, if you have a heavier flow, you'll be changing sooner than that because it'll be full. And your pads and tampons in particular, you should be changing around the 4-hour, 6-hour mark. However, you can wear them safely up to 8 hours before you have to change them. Based on this, I'm sure you know by now whether or not you have a heavy period. So as I'm going through this, I want you to keep a note, like a mental note of your score right now. Let's give each of these 1 point. How many points are you accumulating of these things that are common but not normal? The third one is large clots. And I love to explain what a large clot is because again, we need reference here because large is a pretty abstract thing. Like to an ant, this menstrual cup would be ginormous, right? Because it's an ant. However, to a human, it looks quite small because it could fit in my hand. So when we're saying large here, we mean larger than the size of a dime. So if you're looking at the size of a quarter and these are clots coming outside of you each and every month, tends to be a common symptom that is not normal. So passing large clots is another one of those warning signs where it's like, okay, something here isn't normal. Maybe I need to get it checked out. The fourth one is a little tricky and I'm going to explain why, and that's painful periods. Hold up. I said, let me explain why. Everyone associates periods with pain. So they double P, the double P group. Down with OPP, yeah, you know me. I don't know what the O is stand for. Obviously painful periods. Anyway, periods and pain are often spoken about together, and rightfully so, because our bodies do release something called prostaglandins right before our cycle begins, which triggers our uterus to begin contracting. Yeah, your uterus is contracting. That's why you tend to feel something down there. And that contraction causes the uterus to shed its lining. And that lining, that shedding, becomes our period. It comes from the uterus, past the cervix, through the vagina. Can I say that word on YouTube anymore? People's been blocking everything lately. Maybe I should just say veg. Comes through the veg and into your cup, absorbed by your tampon or absorbed by your pad. 3 options, or you could be a free flower. Do you, boo? So with this in mind, some level of discomfort can be expected. For most people, they would feel when their period is starting. Even those that have normal cycles, you can tell something's going on. However, when it's debilitating, when it's stopping you from doing the things that you normally do day to day, when you can't get out of bed, when you have that kind of pain, that very, very common type of pain, it's not normal. And of course, if you're someone who has endometriosis, that is a painful condition. At this point, you already know that that is the condition, right? So that's not what's considered normal periods per se. And I feel for you. I really do. What we're talking about today are people who don't have those conditions or don't realize they have those conditions yet. And possibly this video, I'm hoping, can help them go get checked out to figure that out. And a lot of times it's something as simple as getting your blood work done, seeing if your vitamin D levels are where they need to be, if you're intaking enough fiber, if you're doing the things you need to do to help your body self-regulate and your hormones to balance as well, making sure your estrogen and your progesterone and all of this matters, what we consume and what we don't consume, the things we put on our bodies, in our bodies, things we're putting on topically. It all matters in the grand scheme of things, even though many people do ignore those pieces. But I understand all of these things matter. And it could be really frustrating for people who are dealing with some very serious issues like endometriosis and PCOS. And it seems like they don't have a solution for any of this. And I'm going to have a doctor on actually talk about some stuff. I'm going to have a friend of mine in a future video come and talk about her solutions and what she finds works really well and has helped herself and so many others reverse some really painful and bad periods, some not normal periods, but that have really common symptoms that are not normal. messed up my own title for this video. But there are things that you can do to help manage the pain. And again, that's a whole video we could get into in another day. Let me know below in the comments if that's something you want to see, or anybody in particular you think would be great to speak to and bring on to get into a lot of this deeper as well. But for now, we're going to be talking about the things that then you hear it and it's you, it should be a little red flag waving around in your head saying, okay, this isn't normal. Let me check it out. The fifth and final one is spotting between periods. Now, it is normal for some people to spot. Some people spot very lightly when they're ovulating. So that's after your period ends. You would have your period and then you'd have some blood-free days. And then you may see some spotting around the time of your ovulation. You can, of course, confirm this with an ovulation test or an ultrasound. Do you? And then you should not have spotting after that, right? If you are someone who spots slightly during ovulation, it's also normal to spot maybe a day before your period, a little bit, give you that little warning that your period's coming. However, that's not what's common amongst people. Is often many days of spotting or bleeding in between their period and the time their period comes again. That, while common, is not normal. So just to recap, the first one is long periods, and I should have also said long cycles with that. So we're going to pretend that's exactly what I said at that time. Long periods and long cycles. So your cycle starts on the day your period begins and it ends the day before your next period begins. A long cycle is anything that's over 39 days. A normal cycle tends to be between 21 and 39 days. So of course, a shorter one would be anything beyond that. So 1 to 20 days is considered a short cycle. So long periods, long cycles, short cycles, all of those things could be common, but are not normal. Okay, let's get back to the recap. So we've discussed 5 common period symptoms that are not normal. And now what I want to get into is speaking to a professional about those symptoms that are abnormal. There's the word. Earlier I was trying to figure out, I'm like, unnormal. I need lunch. I need to eat. I need to get some food. My brain is not functioning as it should right now. So yeah, when you have these abnormalities, you want to speak to a professional. And I know, especially in the recent years, that people have some reservations about professionals, especially medical professionals. But here's the important thing to understand, that a few bad apples or people who don't listen to you, maybe in the past you went to a doctor and shared your concerns about your pain or about the bleeding or whatever it was, and you were dismissed. That's not a you thing. That's a that doctor thing. That's not an old doctor's thing. It's not a you thing. It's a that person thing. They suck. Go find someone else. And it may require you finding or meeting with a few different medical professionals. And I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. I had someone recently comment on one of our Instagram posts over at Best Period on Instagram. I said on our Instagram post over at Best Period on Instagram. I told you I need to get something to eat. Let me wrap this video up. What she shared, because I did a quick little reel and I shared common period symptoms that are not normal, touching on these, but literally just saying them, not going into detail like I did here in this video. But what she commented underneath was the following. For the longest time, I was convincing myself it wasn't a problem because all my doctors said that young women are just not good at handling the pain. Turned out I had an ovarian disorder. That kind of stuff pisses me off. Oh my goodness, it pisses me off so much, man, because we constantly get dismissed and have for years. Now all of this is coming to light thanks to social media, but our problems are constantly being dismissed in large part because so much science isn't studied on us. So much science and tests aren't done on our bodies, on our anatomies. And I'm getting off topic here, but just the other day I saw that they were like pulling back, releasing male birth control because of the side effects that it could have. And I had to smile because, I mean, anything you're consuming is going to have a side effect, like a medication. And regular birth control that's been around forever for us has tons of side effects. It's super important now to look at those side effects because it's impacting someone else. It's not impacting us. But anyway, let me get back to this. So I replied and I told her, sorry to hear that. I hate how dismissive some doctors can be. It's important to advocate for ourselves and switch to a healthcare professional that listens, can empathize, and provide better for our body solutions. I asked her, how is she doing now? This is all underneath our post, so it's public. I'm not sharing something that was in public. And she replied back, I'm doing better. I'll put all of this on the screen, so you're probably reading it along as I'm saying it. She says, I'm doing better. It took switching doctors twice and really pushing, but I finally got answers. Accounts like this one are so important for people's information on this topic. Thank you. The frustrating bit is that she had to go through all of that in order to find someone who listened and helped her get to the other side of things, understanding what's wrong and how she can better deal with and manage her ovarian issues. But I'm glad that she did, and I'm glad she didn't give up and advocated for herself and continued pushing, going through 2 different doctors before she found the person that did work. And that's what I would suggest to you too, because a lot of us, we're scarred. We've spoken to people who've dismissed what we felt like in the past, or, you know, or maybe they even told us it was normal. Maybe they didn't dismiss it and said, yeah, you know, that is normal. And you know that it's not though, because, well, I'm telling you that it's not, but you can also go and look for yourself. Don't take anything I or anybody else on this platform or any other platform has to say. I'm not a medical professional. Let's put that long blurb on the bottom. I am not a medical professional. The things that I'm saying is not medical advice and should not be taken as such. What will come next? Please consult a professional healthcare provider to figure out what can best work for you. So no, I'm not a medical professional. And even when you do have medical professionals on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, wherever, I still want you to take what they say, always with a little bit of skepticism, and look it up for yourself. There are tons of people that are not dealing with period issues. And you can also search for what is abnormal. What is abnormal for periods. So don't just take my word for it, even though I'm right. I did pull together a quiz for you, a quick quiz. I'm going to link to that below in, I was going to say, the show notes. This is not my podcast. I have a podcast. It's not about period stuff. It's about entrepreneurship. Fun. It really is fun. If you're an entrepreneur, go check out Freedom Slave Podcast. Not in the show notes. I'm going to put it below in the description, the link to Is Your Period Normal quiz. What it does is take you through it's a fun interactive quiz, looks cute, really short. You could get through it in less than a minute. And at the end of it, you're going to find out, it goes into more depth than what I'm talking about. It asks a lot more questions and getting a specific to you response. And at the end of that, give some guidance on what your next step should be. And if, depending on your responses, what could potentially assist you. But I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, let me know below. Thank you for listening to me. And I know I don't always have all the words, but this time it's because I'm hungry. Sometimes I have no excuse for it. Yeah. See you next time. My camera just cut out. That was rude of it.